Yeah, I mean, risk is everything. I mean, people that take risk, I have a tremendous amount of respect for. I think growth and comfort don't coexist. I always say that confidence is not about being right; it's about not being afraid to be wrong. And so, being able to take risk it increases and levels up the ceiling for the reward, right? And so, it's hard to raise the ceiling for the reward without taking commensurate risk. I think for me, um, it was really when you leave a job that you've learned a lot and you're getting paid well. We started a company called Heighten in 2014, 15, and we sold it to LinkedIn in 2016. And it was an opportunity to leave Wall Street and finance and an area where you're making great money, great life. I'm not sure if it's a great life. You're making a good lifestyle, and to start something from scratch and leave New York, which was a city I loved, and move to back home to San Francisco, which another great city, but at the time New York was really a special place, and a special place that I didn't want to leave. And we started that company with kind of off our shoestrings and built it, and it became somewhat successful quickly. But it was also, we were building sales productivity and sales enablement software, which is a very powerful tool, but it's not kind of the vision that we've talked about, which is being able to kind of blur those lines between what you're really passionate about and working and making a living. So I think, yeah, taking those risks of knowing when to leave and when to move on and when to say, you know what, I came here to learn, I came here to grow, and now is the opportunity for me to, take another risk, because you shouldn't stop taking risks. There's not like one big risk you take. You take risks every day. And generally speaking, the more risks you take, the more reward that you're going to get, as long as you're doing that in a fashion that is calculated and weighing your options appropriately.
I'm Matt Landau, and this is Unlocked, Season 12, Unlimited Edition, the case for more creativity in our businesses. And today's conversation is definitely a heaping dose of creativity in the form of Sean Breuner, who's the founder and CEO of AvantStay. Today's interview is also all about innovation, something that the vacation rental industry could use a healthy injection of, especially those of us who have been in the business for some time. It's easy to become victims of our own rigidity. It's easy to become so focused on control and standards that we lose the ability to think outside the box. We lose this creative individuality that guests were drawn to in the first place. And that's a slippery slope. So innovation is this important element that oftentimes we're overlooking. But what does it actually mean? The conversation with Sean touches on a number of elements that go into innovation, from intuition, your sensing of things without any tangible evidence, to risk-taking and the courage that's required to really be more honest with oneself as an entrepreneur, as a creator, and a builder. And ultimately, I think it's Sean's ability to conceive of an idea, to then communicate that idea to investors, to his team, and ultimately, even more importantly, to allow that idea to evolve and adapt from what it originally was. I think that is really Sean's secret sauce, that fluidity, that flexibility. Perhaps it's because he's based in California, but there's something about that flowing style that all vacation rental managers could use a little bit more of these days. Before the interview, a quick shout out to our sponsor, OwnerRez. OwnerRes is a property management software which is like the core, most integral piece of any technology stack in our industry. It's the foundation or backbone atop which you want to build. One of the things that struck me about the team at OwnerRes, as I got the chance to meet each of them individually towards the end of last year as I was facilitating their company retreat in the Dominican Republic. One of the things that really stood out to me, both about the individuals and the general culture of that team, was the emphasis on communication and relationships in business. And this is not something you normally hear discussed in a tech company, let's be honest. And frankly, this is a topic that a lot of hospitality professionals tend to skim over as well. In this world in which we're trying to standardize and professionalize all of the little variables that go into our very operationally complex business, as we're in that grind, we tend to overlook some of these more human, more primordial aspects of running a great business. And I think because the team at OwnerRes is so focused on communication, on trust, and on building more meaningful, deeper relationships, both with one another and with their guests, I think that attracts a like-minded type of individual. And you will sense from the moment you reach out that this is a company trying to do things slightly differently. Head over to their website, ownerres.com, and mention that you heard about them on this podcast. They've got a little special for you in store. All right, back to the conversation with Sean. What about people who don't think they have the entrepreneurial bug, but very well may have some kind of entrepreneurial bug that they don't think of themselves as that way?
Yeah, I mean, it can be defined in many different ways. And um, the entrepreneurial bug, or that feeling of, I want to try something new. I want to take risk. I want to do something different. That intuition to say, hey, there's something more out there for me. And that intuition is a big driver. It's not necessarily a good thing, right? Because it sometimes you wake up and you think, man, what it would feel like to not have this bug eaten away.
Right.
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 And that's kind of a nice feeling too. But for those that have it, you got to release it and you got to unlock it and you got to, take advantage of that intuition. If you are hearing intuitively that there is something more, that's something that you kind of need to unpack and understand. And hopefully you're at a company. I know that I've worked with companies in the past where they go, hey, there may be rotational programs, opportunities to learn in different pockets. What is your dream? What is the opportunity you're looking to accomplish? And you don't need answers, but you need to start thinking about those questions. And there is no right answer, right? There is no right answer. There's no black and white. Everything is gray. Even the life you want to create is gray, right? That blurred life between how do I wake up and feel like I'm on vacation when I'm at work? And I say that, half jokingly, because those two things are very different. But vacation exists because work exists, right? And you enjoy vacation when you're having a great time at work, and those two things go hand in hand. But I do think that it is critical for people to really understand why they're doing what they're doing beyond just I'm making a living. And it's, if you're in an environment that you can learn and grow and enjoy, you enjoy the people around you, that transition into other opportunities, you bring a lot to the table, right? There's a lot that you bring to the table there. One of the cool things about AvantStay is, I will say this, is that we have hundreds of entrepreneurs, right? And it's not necessarily about building a company from scratch. It's about having autonomy to build, every day. And so it may be that you want to create a company. It may be that you want to build a world-class team. It may be that you want to kind of innovate on concierge and bring that hotel into the home experience. And there's a specific piece of that you really want to attack. Entrepreneurship is not usually when you start a company, you're now doing, and we touched on this earlier, but you're now doing all the things that you didn't want to do. And so there's this element of entrepreneurship that I'm actually jealous, where people get to create within organizations, they get to actually build, they get to mentor, they get to lead. Whereas, a founder or CEO may not be doing any of the things that they set out to do. So I just wanted a context that entrepreneurship does not mean being a founder or a CEO. Entrepreneurship can come in many different forms. And in fact, the best forms oftentimes don't come in a founder and CEO. And the NVIDIA CEO, which is now one of the, I think, 3 or 4 largest companies in the world building AI chips, for all the major firms, came out and said that the last piece of advice that I would give to people is to go out and start a company. And he's the second richest man in the world now. And so it's not about wealth, it's not about rich, but it is about, being able to build and that autonomy and freedom. And if you're in an environment that gives you autonomy and has accountability and has structure and is building towards a collective vision, there's nothing more powerful than working alongside people that have the same vision as you and the same, kind of, doesn't mean that they won't wake up and say, "You're wrong, Sean. That I disagree." And we love, I love that, because there's nothing better than somebody coming to the table and saying, "Here's another way of looking at it." That's kind of when you get excited about who you're working with. But there's coming to work every day with entrepreneurs that have to be, because you're innovating things that have never been done before. You've never walked into a home really and had a hotel experience in a home. You haven't done that because nobody's cracked the code to build 2,000 mini boutique hotels in the form of single family residential houses that deliver what at a hotel is an on-site experience with on-site staff remotely. And that's where technology has really changed the game, I think, in the hospitality industry, certainly in ours. It's been night and day.
So I want to go back to the beginning of AvantStay's story, which is a chapter or maybe a book of your story. And you mentioned envisioning a future that doesn't exist yet, which I recently read an article about creativity and business, and it was describing it similar to magic, like something that you simply don't understand or that is beyond your wherewithal. How did the story crystallize of AvantStay from the beginning?
Yeah, I think first, I think that most things already exist. And as an entrepreneur, as a founder, what you look to is taking something that exists and making it better or cheaper or faster. In and out to McDonald's. I prefer In and Out. I think it's a better cheeseburger. Even when you think of Steve Jobs and what he did with the iPad, it's another form of the newspaper in some ways, right? You look at the iPad and it's a more innovative, advanced, and yes, it did not exist, but it did exist in some form, which was, really in the form of a newspaper. So there's a lot of different examples of that in short-term rentals in houses. It's a hotel, but in a home, right? And so we call it hotel in a home experience. So it did exist in some form. My story started with 4 younger brothers. So 5 boys, you know, 20 cousins, aunts, uncles, huge family. And when we traveled to, these kind of average hotels, and you'd be chasing each other around. What room is Josh in? You have to call security because Jake, passed out in his room and we can't find him. Everybody meet in the lobby at 6 p.m. for dinner. Of course, nobody's ever there at 6, but thankfully we told the restaurant that the reservation's at 7. And so 6 means we'll see at 6:30. And you're kind of, in some respects, when we would go on these family trips at very, kind of whatever hotels, they were stressful. And, and it didn't feel like vacation. And I kind of remember after After traveling a lot myself, I introduced vacation rentals to the family, to a lot of families, the larger families, and we kind of realized it was a better experience, right? It was just for us, it was a better experience to get together. You wake up, you cook together, you spend time together. You feel a little bit more confined. You're not having to get reservations as much, and so it became this less stressful, elevated experience that we really enjoyed. It doesn't mean that hotels don't always have a place. For me, I really love hotels. I love hospitality. I love travel. And there's many times when I stay at hotels for good reasons. But for families and for groups, I don't think that there's a better experience than having an amazing house in an incredible location that may be on the beach versus the hotel that costs 3 or 4 times as much off the beach. If a hotel room costs $500, our average ADR for a 4.5 bedrooms around 1,000, and so you're getting 8 to 10 people, which is costing you around $100 a night, and you're typically 4 or 5 blocks closer than that hotel, with a lot of amenities, and there's other areas that you can deliver services through chefs and massages and stocked fridges so that you can have that great experience, but you're not paying $1,000 for a dinner for 10 people. So it was really about kind of taking what I grew up with and saying, hey, this is amazing. But now when we show up to some of these places, the consistency wasn't there, or something was wrong, or it didn't have that branded feel, didn't have the kind of true and tried trust of a hotel behind it, of a hotel brand. And so sometimes you show up and there might be a hair on a bed. There might be some a dirty bathroom, or something's not working. And so really felt like there was this opportunity to bring some consistency and an elevated experience into what was a massive opportunity. And when we looked at the short-term rental space, if you look at it in aggregate, it's about a $200 billion industry, and it's the fastest growing segment of hospitality. When you look at the hotel space, it's 700 billion, and there's 70, very large billion-dollar brands in the hotel industry. And usually when you ask somebody, like if I were to ask you, Matt, what your favorite short-term rental brand is, what would you say?
I'm embarrassed that any time anyone asks me this, and I'm known as the vacation rental friend, right? They come to me, "Hey Matt, we're going to go for a vacation rental trip this summer. Where should we book?" And I am so embarrassed that by the fact that I can't confidently point them to any one place. More often than not, it's me going through my personal Rolodex saying, "Oh, I have a great manager here. I know a great manager there." And me personally, when I am trying to book a vacation rental for my family, VRBO and Airbnb and Booking.com are total crapshoots. It feels like you're trying to pick out a needle in a haystack. So much noise. The quality is so diluted that I don't even really know where to look. So, to answer the question in a roundabout way, there is no straightforward answer.
Right. And I think that that's the answer that a lot of people get. Most people that are not in the space will answer Airbnb, because that's what they know as a brand. The difference is when I ask them what their favorite hotel brand, they might say Marriott or Hyatt or Four Seasons. And so they come up with brands, and then I ask them, I go, hey, why is Expedia not your favorite brand? And that's where the light bulb goes off, and they realize that, well, Expedia is not a brand, it's just distributing product. Well, Airbnb, it's a brand, and they are the largest hospitality company in the world. They're actually the size of Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton, Wyndham, IHG, the 5 largest hotel brands combined, and much larger than all 5 of those combined. But Airbnb is a distribution platform. It's an OTA. It's an online travel agency that delivers product and has become this platform that can build brands. So Expedia, you can book Hyatt, Hilton, Marriott, Four Seasons. Airbnb, you can book AvantStay. And so we distribute out to 50, I think it's like 58 different platforms. We're the preferred villa provider for Capital One. So you can use your Capital One points now through through their travel platform, you can use your Bonvoy points to book an AvantStay, which a lot of companies have that now. And then Airbnb, Vrbo, the cheapest and best place to book is always going to be AvantStay. So coming direct, if we're in today 45 markets, 150 cities, and we have a couple thousand properties, if you come direct, you're going to get the best price, the best service, because it will kind of transition you through a flow of concierge, amenities, things that you can book to augment and enhance the experience. But that's where we think, if there's 70 multi-billion dollar brands that you can have confidence and trust, and you want to be a part of their loyalty program in a $700 billion space, in the short-term rental industry, we think there will be, over time, 10 to 15, maybe 20 brands that you can trust to say, this is my favorite brand. They have the best experience, and they're in enough markets that they're going to be able to deliver for your snow trip, for your desert trip, for your mountain trip, for your beach trip. So you're in enough locations where you have diversity, where then you can build this brand loyalty. And our direct booking percentage has gotten to a point where that is becoming evident that people do want to come back. And 20%, nearly 20% of our guests, actually it's a little bit more than that now, come back or repeats within a 6-month period. And that just kind of goes to show you that if you have, if you stay with somebody in the summer, you may want to go on a winter trip and you go skiing, but you can go back to that same brand with the same trust.
You've now spent a number of years practicing that story, enhancing that story, evolving that story. What was it like at the beginning telling that story to fundraisers? Because this is a very different skill than maybe people are traditionally used to. What was it about the telling of the story that maybe you learned the most about?
So, interestingly enough, a lot of people, have asked, how is the story of, evolved? Are you building what you set out to build day one? And most of the stuff that I have built, most of the companies I've built over my career, what I set out to build day one is completely different than what I actually built. And actually, Robert Refkin over at Compass is a good example of somebody who set out to disrupt the brokerage or the broker universe, because when we lived in New York City, we were paying 15% to a broker to rent a place. And so they wanted to create a platform that disrupted brokers. Quickly realized that brokers are very powerful, control the space, and provide a lot of value. And so switched to building and enhancing tooling for brokers. So basically a full 180. And I find that that's a pretty consistent phenomenon amongst entrepreneurs. Is you see an opportunity in an industry or a space to enhance something, and maybe what you try to enhance day one isn't what you end up really trying to enhance it at the end, but you're creating value across the life cycle of that industry. For us, that's a long way of saying, for us, we are building the same thing we set out to build from day one. It is just immeasurably more difficult than we thought. and so I think if we knew how difficult it would be to build a scaled technology platform and brand that could manage thousands of mini boutique hotels across hundreds of cities, we probably wouldn't have signed up for it. I think we've gotten to the point now where we've been through pandemics and fires and hurricanes and real estate shifts and just all of the complexity that has been thrown at us and thrown at everybody. We're no different than anybody else over the past 3 or 4 years, and we've come out of this, and we're the number one ranked national operator on every OTA that we distribute to. So Airbnb, Vrbo, we're running at a 4.8 plus stars, 80 plus NPS. These numbers are second order metrics. But I think that it finally has got to a point where we are excited, more excited than ever, to complete the build of a platform that delivers real differentiation, competitive differentiation that enhances the experience for both homeowners and guests. And so guests are coming into a home saying, on average, this experience is significantly better than other experiences because of what you've been able to enable. And homeowners are saying, we are making a lot more money and my home is in better shape. And it took, years longer to get to that point, I think, than we had first envisioned. And so that's the part about the vision that I think has changed is the patience that you have to go through, years of challenges and obstacles, get to a point to have an opportunity to realize what you set out to do. But for us, that vision really hasn't changed. It's been, how do you really elevate the experience and bring that amenitized hotel, 5-star luxury experience into a home?
So are you saying what exists now has changed a great deal or has not changed a great deal from how you started?
I think the vision has not changed, but our experience has elevated to a significantly higher level. Right? When we look at when we look at our metrics in terms of guest satisfaction, they are far superior today than they were last year or the year before or when we started. And that is also while dealing with the elevation of the expectations of the customer. So the customers 6-7 years ago that would come on Airbnb were largely coming on to Airbnb to look for a deal, to look for an affordable trip. Now there's customers that are coming on expecting luxury, expecting a Four Seasons experience that delivers amenities, chefs, massages, stocked fridges, golf tee times, restaurant tee times. So not only has the industry kind of matured and leveled up, but I think operators have met those expectations, and the ones that continue to supersede those are the ones that will be successful.
How do you approach pivotal moments, I'm just going to call them, for this company that has evolved in the way that you described? There are roadblocks. There are times when serious discussions need to be had and serious decisions need to be made. What have you learned as a leader is the best way to approach those kinds of, it's really adversity in the story?
Yeah, I think adversity is a very powerful tool, and certainly our industry has seen a lot of attrition, and you're continuing to see attrition, across the space from many of the companies either that have gone public or raised a lot of money in the space to build. And I commend them, frankly, because when you set out to take a big swing and big risk to build something different and special, you should be commended. You should never not be commended for taking those types of risks. And I think sometimes the industry actually holds itself back. And you see a lot of the players today that come out and are not taking risks and talk about, really the fact that they need to make a lot of money to be successful. And the only way that a firm can be successful in this space is to be supremely profitable. Well, Amazon wasn't profitable for, decades, and they changed the world that we lived in. And most great companies were not profitable for decades. And we are profitable, but it took us years to get there. And so part of what you have to do, I think, is take risks and take swings to enable change, to enable this differentiated experience to come to fruition.
Every story, every hero has this world of unknown in which, what's the quote? Fabulous forces are are encountered, and a decisive victory is won. I think we used the word entrepreneur earlier. I heard you really just saying the word builder, which I love because maybe someone doesn't envision themselves as an entrepreneur, but they know they can go build something in their kitchen or on a piece of music sheet. Builders, storytellers who are writing their own story reach these moments like, oh crap. And they're confronted with maybe things are not going the way that I planned.
Yeah.
And the question was, how do you approach something like that so as not to get paralyzed by it, so as to flow through it?
Yeah, and I think where I was going with that is that is if you believe that what you're building, is important and that it really can change the way that people, enjoy life and live. And that is it. That's at the core of everything that I believe in. If you can, enhance people's lives in some measurable way, and for us, it's how do we enable you to create more and better memories? Um, that belief allows you to persevere through any adversity, knowing that you're building something that really matters and that can be a game changer for the way that we enjoy our lives. The other thing that I would say is patience. Sometimes as an entrepreneur or as a builder, you want to be out of the gate and you want to run fast and you want to run hard. And it's not always running fast and hard in a big industry. Um, the folks that do things the right way in any industry are the ones that will win. And a good example of this that everybody can kind of understand is there were hundreds of e-sign companies. There's, the likes of, right, DocuSign, HelloSign, Dropbox Sign, Echo Sign, and I named the successful ones. What I'm not naming are the 100 in the graveyard. And DocuSign is arguably the most successful and is public. And it's because they built something that on the surface seems simple, but is massively complex, and they built it the right way. And there's 23,000 short-term rental companies in the United States of America. 23,000, massively fragmented industry. It's almost $100 billion industry now. They just came out, it's like 70, 80 billion. But then you add in concierge and services, you kind of get into the 100 billion plus. And so I think when you look at our industry, the folks that exercise a little bit of patience and that do things the right way, as opposed to rushing and having a sense of urgency. Hospitality, in my opinion, is the single most difficult industry in the world. I'm sure, like, the likes of the AI companies or building robots or getting to,
Coal
to
mining.
Mars and Tesla and outer space. Like, I'm sure that's all difficult, but still, I would put hospitality up there with getting to Mars. Dealing with millions of people, I think we're a million guests a year about, and different personalities, and being able to build an experience that people truly love, is really hard. And it's good to acknowledge the challenges of your industry or the company you're building, but it's also something we really love focusing on. We really love thinking about. When I wake up, I think about hospitality and how do you enhance the experience for groups, for families, and the same thing when I go to bed. So I would say be patient, do things the right way. And then as far as adversity, you can assume that something is coming, something really bad and difficult and challenging is coming, and know that it's not the end of the world. Know that you just have to compartmentalize that, be thoughtful, react in a way that is measured, sophisticated, intelligent, and you will get through it. We had to fire 70% of our staff in the pandemic to survive. We came out of the pandemic with the biggest opportunity, that we've ever had in the short-term rental space, and it was a huge boom for our industry. Most recently, the real estate shift, where we had propcos and people buying a lot of homes, that shifted significantly. We had, unfortunately, really difficult events related to whether it's weather or fires or hurricanes, things that were completely out of our control, basically like force majeure events that you could never expect. So I would say expect the unexpected, and then you won't be shocked when something like that happens.
I really love the phrase force majeure.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah, I mean, it's force majeure is when a tidal wave comes in and sadly wipes out Fort Myers, and a market that was one of your largest and you were most excited about is now gone. And you think, hey, and look at Maui. I mean, how terrible, were those fires? And those are two markets that we we're deeply ingrained in at a local level that we still to this day we've donated, we've helped, and it's just been things that were completely out of our control that were devastating and significantly more devastating for the communities, but that you have to kind of say, how do we move forward? How do we move forward from that shock?
As a company, those moments make you stronger. And as individuals, when those shocks to the system happens, God forbid you lose a loved one or you have a health scare or issue, the one thing that for me is a bit of solace, because you say be patient. Okay, great. But how I can't just wait around here forever. For me, while a business is working to clarify its vision and its place in the market, its value proposition, the builders out there, whether they're starting their own business or not, are working to enhance their vision for themselves and determine what do they want, what do they like. Maybe this is the last straw. Maybe I have changed since I started this 10 years ago. And I think there's a real kind of honesty that it takes with ourselves, just kind of looking in the mirror, literally or metaphorically, and saying like, this is there's something missing, or this is like really an area that I want to explore. I need to be more honest with myself in that regard. And I think that is a kind of moment a lot of people are starting to face based on all of these crazy changes. Those disruptive forces really will get you if your clarity is not there. And at least that's something we can work on in the time being while we're being patient, is enhancing that vision.
Yeah, I think there's a great book that everybody should read. It's called Anti-Fragile. And have you read that book?
Yeah.
So obviously, was it Talim? One of the greatest books ever written, because what it's about is about building something in someone, yourself, that is anti-fragile. And people throw around the word resilient. Resilient means, hey, I got to fight through this because, I was just knocked in the mouth, right? And I got to fight through this and be resilient. Anti-fragile is whatever knocks me actually immediately makes me stronger. And I think the pandemic and COVID was a great example of that. Like, it knocked us down and made us so much stronger. So whenever you're thinking about building businesses or families or your own kind of self, anti-fragile is the dream. The dream is that when one of those shocks happen, you actually become stronger. You don't have to get up and fight. You actually become a stronger company, a stronger person. And it's a tremendous book to kind of reframe your mind about how you think about building things, to say that if that shock that I don't know is coming comes, it's actually going to make us significantly stronger as a business, as a family. And for us over the years, what we've built internally is what we build externally, right? We're building the best experiences in the world for families and friends and groups. And we have now become a family because of, this is what you're building. So you have the same kind of mentality that people coming, to work here, but also because we've been through a lot, you know.
What is your next leap professionally?
So I'm building a company that is delivering an experience that so if you were to ask me, Sean, what's your favorite thing to do in the world? It would be to sit on the back porch, with my family. Matt comes over with his family. You sit out there, you have a great dinner, bottle of wine, and you chat it up and you have an amazing time. So basically a podcast around a great meal with wine and, some games. Like, I love games, right? And so if I guess my dream would be to actually be able to think about how to make that experience more, as opposed to, being the CEO dealing with the day to day. That would be really cool, is if you could get to a point where you can innovate as a CEO, which is very rare because most CEOs, once they get the company off the ground, other people get to do all the fun stuff. They get to innovate. And if you could get to a point in your career where you've built a company that enables the CEO to continue to innovate and be a visionary. That's super exciting for me. But I don't think um, that leaving hospitality and single family residential real estate and creating experiences for families and groups and memories and traveling to meet all these incredible people in different areas. I mean, all over the United States, you just have completely different cultures. One of the most magical things about the United States that doesn't get enough credit is how much culture and how many different cultures there are in the U.S. I mean, it is spectacular, and we get to experience that because we're in so in August of this year, I rented an RV, so coming up, and I'm going to travel the country in an RV to go to all the different markets that we operate in, and I couldn't be more excited. So I don't know what else I would do. I guess the next phase of my career is just more of this.
This final point, I think, is worth elaborating. That for a leader nowadays to innovate, they need to detach from the grind, from the machine, to go somewhere new and to be intellectually challenged, to take in new perspectives and be able to come back to the grind with new ideas. That's the recipe for innovation, not just one time, but regularly. That ability to detach and to dream and to welcome new ideas in and then go back to the active operations. That is the balance that I think we can all get a little bit better at. And it does require some more intentionality. It requires allocating resources to force yourself really to detach and to go somewhere where you can think more creatively. But like Sean was saying, when that force majeure comes into play, it's the people who have been practicing this more outside the box kind of thinking. Those are the individuals who are able to lead their organizations confidently into the future. If you'd like to explore what some of these workshops and retreats that I've mentioned look like for your organization, feel free to reach out to me at Matt with 2 T's at vrmb.com. You can also use the promotional code AVANT350 to book any home in the AvantStay network to host your own kind of retreat with your team or your group. Thanks to Sean and his team for arranging that. And finally, thanks to our sponsor, OwnerRez, who leads with their own unique style of innovation. You can head over to their website at ownerrez.com to learn more. Until next time.